I'm going to talk a little bit about that art now. So again, about 250 years it's been now that art has not been about beauty. It hasn't been about craftsmanship. It's really been about the imagination, right, if we recall Diderot's groupings. And if art is about the imagination, about ideas, and the idea is primary, then it follows that its form and techniques are secondary. Now, there was actually an entire movement of art, conceptual art, in the 1960s that took this premise to its logical conclusion. We see an example here. This is Joseph Kosuth's One in Three Chairs. And the work is really asking, how do we know what a chair is, right? It seems like a simple question, but Kosuth is wondering, is it because we understand photographic reproductions of a chair? Is it because of its physical form? Or because of the word chair, whose definition we agree upon by convention? Now, if we extrapolate out, the work is really asking, why do things mean what they mean? Or as Kosuth has said, art isn't about colors and forms, it's about meaning. Now, I'm going to guess that after this explanation, most of you get this work, but you might not find it particularly compelling or interesting. And I have to say, I would sort of agree with you there. I think that the ideas are a little bit too clean, almost too perfect for me, that they become a little boring. And contemporary art doesn't have to be like this. In fact, what I often find most interesting about art are not the ideas themselves, but how they're expressed. This how is something that art historians might call strategies or modes, if you've ever heard those terms before. And it's with these strategies often that we find some of the most interesting creative solutions and great innovations. I want to share 5 of these strategies with you right now. So artists might just want to create a new sensory experience, simple as that. James Turrell, whose work we see here installed in the Guggenheim, he said, I wanted to create a light that was like the light you see in your dreams. That's really what this work is. You go in and it's this revelatory experience of light, simple as that. Artists might embed meaning in materials. So in 2014, Kara Walker took over the Domino Sugar Factory in Brooklyn. This was a 130-year-old abandoned factory, and she created this monumental sphinx. So you might notice here that this sphinx, it has what we would call these traditional mammy features. So it's very much a stereotypical image of a black female slave. Now, Walker used over 30 tons of sugar to produce this work. So sugar, what does it mean? I mean, it connects the work to its site, of course, the Domino Sugar Factory. But sugar was also a major driver of the slave trade. So Walker is really trying to get us to think about our associations with sugar, what it means in our everyday lives, what it means in our violent history, and then maybe how that history relates to our present day and our own lives. Artists sometimes just want to evoke emotions, whether it's joy or maybe nostalgia for the balloon animals of our youth. Whatever emotion exists out there, there's a work of art that expresses it. Art about art. Now, this is a little bit more of a difficult one, but artists spend their lives making art. They're going to engage with it and engage with its history. This is a work of art by Mark Flood called Another Painting. Now, imagine that you're going to an art fair, which is where galleries sell their works of art. And you've seen thousands of works all for sale, booth after booth, and then you finally see this. It's like another painting. Here's Niki de Saint-Phalle. In the 1960s, she started shooting her canvases with a gun. So this is this great act of nihilism, this literally taking aim at the medium that has dominated art for the past 500 years. Artists also expand possibilities, moving beyond just the normal mediums of art and the normal spaces of art. So Robert Smithson's Spiral Jetty from 1970, it's a man-made landmass that juts out 1,500 feet into the Great Salt Lake. So Smithson here is literally making the earth itself his medium and his museum. Or here we see Azuma Makoto, who teamed up with JP Aerospace to blast bonsais out into Earth's stratosphere, 91,000 feet. and film them with GoPros. So these artists are showing that literally art could be about anything, and it can be perceived and it can be experienced anywhere, whether on Earth or even beyond. This brings us to you. So I bet you're asking at this point, how are you going to start experiencing this art? Well, I think a really good first place to start is that we saw now that art can be about anything, which means that chances are there's a work of art out there that's relevant to something that you care about or that's relevant to your own life. Whether you're interested in topics of gender and identity, or maybe politics and the Black Lives Matter movement, maybe technology, or maybe just a fun and interesting new way of interacting with people. This is one of my favorite works. It's by the collective Electronic Disturbance Theater, and it's called the Transborder Immigrant Tool. Now, this artwork actually consisted of a series of burner phones that were handed out to undocumented immigrants crossing the Mexican border into Southern California. And the phones contained GPS units that could lead them to water in the Southern California desert. Now, the phones also included poetry, right? Because they're works of art. And because these phones were being used to aid undocumented immigrants, this group came under investigation by the FBI Cybercrimes Unit. And during an interrogation, the FBI asked them, why was there poetry on the phones? Is this poetry encrypted? And the group's response was, well, isn't all poetry encrypted? So art is a lot like this, right? It's an encrypted form of meaning. But there's not just one meaning, right? There's not the meaning that the FBI expected to find, some kind of code word. There's multiple meanings. And to try to understand this art, to try to decrypt it, so to speak, we just need to think about the strategies that I discussed, right? Those 5 strategies. And we can use those to reverse engineer the questions that you can ask next time you see art. So first ask yourself, what do I see here? What am I experiencing? Can I touch the art? Can I go into it? If you're experiencing something new, it might be enjoyable, it might not be, but if you can notice that, that might be it. You might already get the art. Another thing, what are the materials? This is Damien Hirst's For the Love of God. It's a skull that includes 8,000 flawless diamonds. So what is Hirst trying to say by using this material? What do I feel? Why? What is the artist doing that makes me feel that? And lastly, what does this art say about other art? Granted, this might be the most difficult question to answer because it does require some prior knowledge. But you can, look at a press release, look at a wall label, try to read about it. And now that you know a little bit about how this type of language works, the type of language that you're going to encounter in a press release, maybe you can translate that into English. And if you can take one idea from it, that's a great place to start. Now, I'm going to guess that for about 99% of the work that you see, if you ask yourself these questions and you still don't get it, it might be that what's going on is that you don't like it. And you know what? There's probably other people out there who feel the same way. And that's okay. I think by all means, I want you to go out there and dislike art. Dislike a lot of art. Because along the way, you might actually find art that you like. Thank you.